I had the ring in my pocket, the speech memorized. Her entire family was waiting for the big announcement. Then her drunk cousin leaned over and whispered 8 words that shattered everything. Everyone knows she has a thing with another guy. I left that night, drove 4 hours straight, never looked back. And what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. If you've ever felt that gut punch moment when you realize the person you love has been lying to your face, this story is for you. Hit that like button if you believe the truth always finds a way out. And subscribe because this journey gets wild. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Let me take you back to the beginning, before everything fell apart. Before the lies, the humiliation, the late night drives with tears streaming down my face. Before I became someone I never thought I'd be. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that for 3 years, I thought I knew exactly where my life was heading. I was 28 years old, working a steady job in marketing, living in a decent apartment with the woman I loved. Her name was Jen, 26, beautiful in that effortless way some people just have, with dark hair that caught the light and a laugh that made everything feel lighter. We'd met through mutual friends at a barbecue, one of those perfect summer afternoons where the beer's cold and the conversation flows easy. Our first date was at this little Italian place downtown. She ordered the carbonara. I remember because she closed her eyes when she took the first bite, like she was savoring something sacred. That night, walking her to her car, she grabbed my hand first. That's when I knew. 3 years. That's 1,000 days of waking up next to someone, 1,000 small moments, grocery shopping together, arguing about whether to get the expensive coffee, falling asleep on the couch during movies neither of us cared about but watched anyway because it meant being close. I knew how she took her coffee. I knew she got quiet when she was stressed about work. I knew she had this habit of stealing my hoodies and pretending she didn't. I thought I knew everything. For months, I'd been planning, not just casually thinking about it, actively, meticulously planning. I'd saved up for the ring, a princess-cut diamond that cost me 3 months' salary, not because I'm some old-fashioned guy who believes in those arbitrary rules, but because I wanted her to have something that showed her exactly how serious I was, how permanent this felt to me. I'd even enlisted one of her best friends, Sarah, to help me pick it out. We spent an entire Saturday afternoon going from jeweler to jeweler, me getting increasingly anxious as I realized I had no idea what I was doing. Sarah kept reassuring me. "She's going to love it," she said, examining the ring under the boutique lights. "She's going to say yes before you even finish asking." The ring sat in my sock drawer for 2 months, hidden in its velvet box, waiting for the perfect moment. And then the invitation came. Jen's family reunion. A big weekend event at her grandparents' place upstate, one of those sprawling properties with a wraparound porch and enough land that you could actually see stars at night. Her entire extended family would be aunts, uncles, cousins she only saw once or twice a year. It was a major occasion, the kind of gathering where announcements were made and memories were created. "You're coming, right?" Jen had asked, and there was something in her voice I couldn't quite place at the time, something almost careful. "Of course," I'd said, "wouldn't miss it." I decided then, this was it, the perfect moment. I'd proposed during the big dinner on the final night, in front of everyone who mattered to her. Romantic, traditional, memorable. Everything I thought she'd want. I should have noticed the signs earlier. Looking back now, they're so obvious they practically glow. But that's the thing about being in love, isn't it? You see what you want to see. You explain away the inconsistencies. You trust. The weeks leading up to the reunion, Jen had been different, distant. She'd come home from work and go straight to her phone, texting someone with this little smile on her face that used to be reserved for conversations with me. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd say, "Just work stuff," or "Sarah's drama," and change the subject. She'd also started making comments. Little jabs, really. The kind that sting but don't quite cross the line into a real fight. "You don't have to text me every hour," she'd said one day when I'd checked in during my lunch break like I always did. "I'm not going anywhere." But I was clingy, apparently. That's what she'd been telling her family behind my back. Me, the guy who'd spent 3 years being what I thought was attentive and caring, reduced to a single dismissive word, clingy. I didn't know that yet, though. Not as we packed the car for the reunion. Not as we drove those 3 hours north, Jen singing along to the radio, my hand on her thigh, the ring box hidden in my overnight bag like a ticking time bomb of hope.
The reunion started off fine. Better than fine, actually. Her grandparents' place was exactly as beautiful as I'd imagined. White clapboard house with blue shutters, massive oak trees providing shade, the smell of somebody's brisket already smoking on a grill out back. Jen's mom hugged me tight when we arrived. "So glad you could make it," she said, and she seemed to mean it. I met cousins and second cousins, aunts and uncles whose names I'd forget within the hour. Everyone was friendly, welcoming. I helped carry folding chairs from the garage. I made small talk about sports and weather. I was doing everything right. And then I noticed him. Mike. That's not his real name, but it's close enough. Mid to late 20s, tall, one of those guys who looks like he played lacrosse in college and never quite let go of it. Polo shirt, boat shoes, a jaw so square it looked photoshopped. He wasn't just there, he was there with Jen, laughing at her jokes, standing just a little too close, touching her arm when he talked, and she was letting him. "Who's that?" I asked one of Jen's cousins, trying to sound casual. "Mike? Old friend of Jen's, I think. From college, maybe?" Old friends, right. Old friends don't look at someone the way Mike was looking at Jen. I found them on the back porch that first evening, just before dinner. The sun was setting, painting everything gold, and they were standing close, talking in those low tones that suggest intimacy. When I opened the screen door, they both went quiet, just stopped mid-sentence like I'd walked in on something I wasn't supposed to see. "Hey," I said, and my voice sounded weird even to my own ears. "Dinner's almost ready." Jen's smile was too bright. "Mike, this is my boyfriend. Babe, this is Mike. We went to college together." Mike shook my hand with one of those grips that's just a touch too firm. "Great to meet you, man. Jen's told me a lot about you." Funny, she'd never mentioned him to me at all. Dinner that night was at these long tables set up in the backyard, strings of lights overhead, citronella candles fighting a losing battle against the mosquitoes. I sat next to Jen, but Mike was directly across from us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was intruding on something. Every time Jen laughed at one of his stories, and she laughed a lot, it felt like a tiny betrayal. "You okay?" she asked at one point, her hand on my knee under the table. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired from the drive." That night, lying in the guest room we'd been assigned, I stared at the ceiling and told myself I was being paranoid. So what if she had an old friend here? So what if they seemed close? I was the one she'd brought home. I was the one sharing her bed. I was the one about to propose. The ring box pressed against my consciousness like a bruise I couldn't stop touching. The second day was worse. There was a big, organized hike in the morning, Jen's uncle leading a group of us through the trails that crisscrossed the property. Mike came along. Of course he did. And somehow, without me quite noticing how it happened, Mike and Jen ended up walking together at the front of the group, while I got stuck making conversation with her teenage cousin about video games I'd never played. By the time we got back, sweaty and covered in bug spray, I'd chewed the inside of my cheek raw. Lunch was a casual affair. Sandwich fixings spread out on the kitchen counter, people making their own plates. I made Jen her favorite, turkey and Swiss with just a little mayo, exactly how she liked it. But when I brought it to her, she was already eating a sandwich Mike had made her. "Oh, thanks, babe," she said, taking mine anyway. "I'll save this for later." She didn't. The afternoon dragged. There were long games, cornhole and croquet, and I tried to participate, tried to be the fun boyfriend who fit in with her family, but I kept catching glimpses of Mike and Jen, always somehow in each other's orbit, always finding reasons to touch, a high five that lasted too long, a playful shove that turned into her hand resting on his arm. By the time evening rolled around, I felt like I was watching my relationship dissolve in real time, and I was powerless to stop it. The bonfire that second night is when everything shattered. Someone had built up a massive fire pit in the clearing behind the house, the kind of fire that sends sparks shooting 20 feet into the air, logs arranged in a circle for seating. Someone had brought a guitar. Coolers full of beer appeared from somewhere. The whole scene had this nostalgic summer camp energy that would have been perfect if I wasn't slowly dying inside. I grabbed a beer I didn't really want and sat down next to some of Jen's cousins. Jen herself was on the opposite side of the fire, surprise, surprise, sitting next to Mike.
The flames cast dancing shadows across her face, and she looked beautiful and distant and like someone I didn't know anymore.
One of the cousins next to me, I think her name was Olivia, though everyone called her Liv, was on her third or fourth beer, maybe fifth. She was young, 24 maybe, with that particular brand of drunk where everything that crosses your mind immediately comes out your mouth. "So," she said, turning to me with unfocused eyes, "you seem nice." "Thanks," I said, not really paying attention. Across the fire, Mike had said something that made Jen laugh, really laugh, throwing her head back. "Too nice, probably," Liv continued. She took another swig of beer. "Like, way too nice for this situation." That got my attention. What situation? Liv gave me this look, pity mixed with something like frustration, like she was annoyed that she had to be the one to state the obvious. "Why can't you just take a hint and leave her for someone better?" The words hit me like cold water. I actually laughed, this nervous, confused sound. "What? What hint? What are you talking about?" Liv leaned in, beer breath hot in my face. "Everyone knows Jen and Mike have a thing. She tells people you're too clingy." She said it matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. Before I could process that, before I could even form a coherent thought, another cousin yanked Liv away, hissing something about being quiet and inappropriate, but the damage was done. I sat there, beer growing warm in my hand, while Liv's words echoed in my head. Everyone knows. Everyone knows. How long had I been the only one who didn't? How long had I been walking around Jen's family reunion, making small talk and helping with dishes and planning my proposal, while everyone who smiled at me knew I was being made a fool of? The fire crackled. Someone started playing Wonderwall on the guitar because, of course, they did. The whole scene suddenly felt surreal, like I was watching it from outside my body. Mike. His name kept circling in my thoughts. Not just an old college buddy, a thing. They had a thing. And I was clingy. That word burned worse than the others somehow. 3 years of what I thought was love and attention, reframed as smothering. Had she always felt that way? Or was it something she'd started saying recently to justify what? Whatever this was with Mike. I thought about all those times I'd texted her during the day. Just check-ins. How's work? Thinking about you. Want me to grab dinner on the way home? Were those clingy? She'd always responded. She initiated just as often. Or had I imagined that? Was I rewriting our entire relationship in my head right now? I needed to know. I needed to hear it from her. I found Jen still by the fire, though Mike had wandered off to grab another beer. I touched her elbow and she looked up, surprised. "Can we talk?" I asked, privately. She must have seen something in my face because she didn't argue. We walked away from the bonfire, toward the edge of the property where the manicured lawn gave way to wild grass. The sounds of the party faded behind us. Laughter, music, the crackling fire. "What's up?" Jen asked, and she sounded cautious now, guarded. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Who is Mike? Like really, who is he to you?" Her jaw tightened. "I told you, he's an old friend from college." "That's not what your cousin just said." For just a second, panic flashed across her face, then irritation replaced. "Which cousin? What did they say?" "It doesn't matter who. They said you and Mike have a thing. They said you've been telling people I'm too clingy." Jen's eyes went skyward, that universal gesture of exasperation. "Jesus Christ, you're being paranoid." "Am I?" My voice cracked. I hated how desperate I sounded. "Because from where I'm standing, you've been spending this entire weekend with him instead of me. You never mentioned him before, and now I'm hearing..." "Okay, fine." She threw up her hands. "You want the truth? He was an old fling, back in college, but that was years ago. We're just friends now. That's it." An old fling. Not just a friend, an ex. An ex she'd specifically invited to her family reunion without mentioning it to me. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you lie? I didn't lie, I just didn't think it was relevant. She was getting defensive now, her voice rising. "We're just catching up. Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" "Because you're acting like I'm crazy for even asking. Because you're the one who brought your ex to a family event and didn't think that was worth mentioning to your boyfriend? Oh my God, stop, you're making a scene." I looked around. We were alone, in the dark. "I'm not making a scene. I'm asking you a question." And I answered it. "He's a friend, an old friend. You're overreacting."
She crossed her arms. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This clingy, jealous thing. It's exhausting. There it was, that word again. Clingy, thrown at me like an accusation. I've never been clingy, I said, and my voice was shaking now. I've been present. I've been caring. If you had a problem with how I treated you, why didn't you ever say anything? I shouldn't have to. You should just know when you're being too much. We stared at each other in the darkness, and I realized I didn't recognize the person in front of me. This wasn't the woman who'd stolen my hoodies and fallen asleep on my shoulder during long car rides. This was someone else. Someone who'd been building resentment in secret and inviting her ex-fling to family events and calling me clingy behind my back. The ring box in my bag suddenly felt like the punchline to the world's cruelest joke. I can't believe this, I said quietly. I can't believe you've been lying to me, to my face. I haven't been lying. You're being ridiculous. She was almost yelling now. You know what? I'm going out. Some of us are going to the bar in town. You can stay here if you're tired. Who's some of us? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. So you're leaving me here to go drinking with Mike? With Mike and some cousins, yeah, we'll be back later. She was already turning away. Maybe you should use the time to calm down. And just like that, she walked away, left me standing in the dark while she went back to the bonfire to round up her bar crew. Through the trees, I could see her laughing with Mike, touching his arm as she told him something. A few cousins gathered around them, grabbing keys and wallets. I stood there until they all piled into cars and drove off, taillights disappearing down the long driveway. The humiliation was physical. It sat in my stomach like something rotten. I was at my girlfriend's family reunion, and she just ditched me to go out with her ex. And everyone here, her cousins, her aunts and uncles, her parents, they all knew. They'd all watched it happen. Some of them probably expected it. I walked back to our guest room in a daze. The house was quieter now, most people having gone to bed or still out by the dying bonfire. I sat on the edge of the bed we were supposed to share and pulled out my phone. My brother answered on the second ring. Hey man, how's the big weekend going? I couldn't even form words at first. Hello, you there? She's been lying to me about everything, I think. I told him all of it, the way she'd been distant, the mystery of Mike, the drunken cousin's revelation, Jen's dismissive reaction when I confronted her. My brother listened without interrupting, which I appreciated because if he tried to make excuses for her or tell me I was overreacting, I might have lost it. What are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I looked around the room, her stuff mixed with mine, our bags on the floor, the life I'd thought we were building together, packed into 2 suitcases. I think I'm done, I said, and saying it out loud made it real. I think this is over. You sure? Was I sure? I thought about the ring. I thought about 3 years. I thought about the apartment lease we just renewed. I thought about how many people's lives get tangled together after 3 years, how many mutual friends and shared belongings and intertwined futures. Then I thought about Jen laughing with Mike, Jen calling me clingy, Jen choosing him over me, over and over again this whole weekend. Yeah, I said, I'm sure. You need me to come get you? No, I'm going to drive back tonight. I need to get out of here. After I hung up, I started packing. It didn't take long. I'd only brought enough for a weekend. Each item went into my bag with mechanical precision. Shirts folded, toiletries zipped into their case, the ring box wrapped in a sock so it wouldn't rattle. I almost left it there, the ring, almost set it on her pillow like some dramatic breakup gesture. But that felt too much like giving her something she didn't deserve. That ring represented a future she'd already thrown away. Before I left, I wrote a note. Short. Had to head home. We'll talk later. I didn't explain, didn't accuse, just facts. I left it on the nightstand and walked out. The drive back was 4 hours of darkness and highway lines and the worst playlist the radio had to offer because I couldn't focus enough to connect my phone to Bluetooth. My mind was spinning, alternating between rage and grief and this horrible, hollow feeling like my chest had been scooped out. Somewhere around the 2-hour mark, I started crying. Not sobbing, just these quiet tears that rolled down my face while I drove 70 miles per hour through the night. I didn't wipe them away, just let them fall. By the time I pulled into our apartment complex, it was almost 4 in the morning. The building was dark and silent. I sat on the couch in the dark, watching the sky gradually lighten, waiting for dawn and wondering what the hell I was supposed to do next. The sun rose. I called my brother. "I'm on my way," he said before I could even explain. "Give me 30 minutes. He showed up with his truck and 2 other buddies I'd grown up with. They didn't ask questions, didn't make me explain. Just started loading boxes with my stuff. Clothes, books, the PlayStation, my half of the kitchen equipment. The unspoken agreement was that I'd grab the essentials now, sort out the rest later. We worked in efficient silence. Every item I packed felt like dismantling a life. The coffee maker we bought together, the framed photo from our trip to the coast, the blanket her mom had given us last Christmas. What do you do with the debris of a relationship? What's mine? What's hers? What's ours? I took what was undeniably mine and left everything else. Better to lose some stuff than to drag this out. I texted Jen once, simple and direct. Staying with my brother for a bit. Need some space. She didn't respond immediately. Still at the reunion probably. Still with Mike. The thought made my stomach turn. My brother's apartment was smaller than mine. Ours. A 1-bedroom he'd been living in since his divorce 2 years ago. "Couch is yours as long as you need it," he said, and I loved him for not making a big thing out of it. That first day, I moved through everything in a fog, unpacking my essentials, setting up a temporary life in his living room, staring at my phone every time it buzzed, dreading and hoping in equal measure. When Jen finally called, it was late afternoon. I almost didn't answer. "Where the hell are you?" No hello, no concern, just anger. "I left," I said. My voice was flat, emotionless. I'd cried myself out sometime around dawn. "I can see that. You just disappeared. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? Everyone's asking where you went. That's what you're worried about? How it looks? You left me at my family reunion without a word?" I left a note. A note! Jesus Christ! I could hear her moving, probably pacing. Background noise suggested she was still at her grandparents' place. "This is insane. You're acting insane." "I'm acting insane?" The anger I'd been suppressing all night started bubbling up. "You spent the entire weekend with your ex-boyfriend. You lied about who he was. You ditched me to go out drinking with him, and I'm the one who's insane? Nothing happened with Mike. I don't care if something happened. You've been dishonest. You've been disrespectful. You've been telling your family I'm clingy while sneaking around with another guy. That's enough." There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Less angry, more calculating. "Okay, you're upset. I get it. Let's talk about this when I get home. We can work this out." "There's nothing to work out. Don't be dramatic. I'm moving my stuff out. This is over, Jen." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "You're breaking up with me?" Her voice was small now, disbelieving. "Over this?" "Over the lies, over the disrespect, over you choosing someone else over me repeatedly." I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "Yeah, I'm breaking up with you."
"You're going to regret this," she said, and now the anger was back, sharp and cutting. "You're throwing away 3 years because you're too insecure to handle me having male friends." Friends don't lie about their exes being at family reunions. "Fuck you," she spat. "You know what? Fine, leave. I don't need this. I don't need you smothering me constantly." She hung up. I stared at my phone, and the strangest feeling washed over me. Relief. Actual physical relief, like I'd been holding my breath underwater and finally broke the surface. It was over. Really over. Over the next few days, I went back to the apartment when I knew she'd be at work, grabbed more clothes, my laptop, my important documents, left my key on the counter with a text, got the rest of my things, took my name off the lease. "It's all yours." She responded, "Wow, real mature." I blocked her number after that. My brother's friends rallied, plans every night, even if it was just ordering pizza and watching basketball. They didn't make me talk about it unless I wanted to. When I did want to talk, they listened without judgment. When I didn't, they filled the silence with normal, stupid guy conversation about sports and work and anything else. "You did the right thing," my best friend Marcus said one night, beer in hand. "She was playing you, man. Better you found out now." Now, before the proposal.
Before I'd legally tied myself to someone who saw me as Clingy instead of caring. Before I'd stood in front of her entire family and promised forever to someone who'd already started looking for the exit. That thought kept me sane during the worst moments. But here's the thing nobody tells you about breakups. They don't end clean. There's paperwork, logistics. The apartment lease took 2 weeks to sort out. Jen's mom called me trying to mediate, and I had to politely but firmly tell her this was between Jen and me. I returned the ring, watched the jeweler inspect it with professional detachment, got 70% of my money back, and through it all I felt lighter. Sad, yeah, grieving what I'd thought we had, but underneath that, relief. I dodged a bullet, a marriage-shaped bullet. Then, Liv reached out. It started with a simple message on social media. "Hey, I'm really sorry about what I said at the reunion. I was drunk and it came out wrong, but you deserved to know the truth. Hope you're doing okay." I almost ignored it. The last thing I needed was more contact with Jen's family, but something made me respond. "Thanks. I appreciate you being honest, even if it hurt to hear." We messaged back and forth a bit. She explained what she'd observed that weekend, how Jen had specifically invited Mike, how she'd been complaining about me to family members, how Liv had felt bad watching me walk around clueless while everyone else knew. "For what it's worth," Liv wrote, "I think you handled it with a lot of class. Jen's been telling people you freaked out and caused the scene, but I was there. You didn't. You just left quietly. So Jen was rewriting history. Of course she was." Over the following weeks, Liv and I kept talking. Not about Jen, we'd exhausted that topic pretty quickly, just life. She was funny, smart. We had similar taste in music, similar sense of humor. She'd send me memes that actually made me laugh. We'd text about random stuff, work frustrations, weird news stories, TV shows. It felt good, easy, like talking to an old friend, even though we'd barely known each other before all this. "Want to grab lunch sometime?" she asked after about 3 weeks. "I'm going to be in your area for work." I hesitated. She was Jen's cousin. This could get complicated. But you know what? I was single. Jen had made her choices. I deserved to make mine. "Sure," I typed back. "Why not?" Lunch was supposed to be casual, just a friendly meal between two people who'd been texting. I told myself that driving to the restaurant, told myself that while I was parking, told myself that right up until Liv walked in and I realized I'd been lying to myself. She was beautiful, like genuinely beautiful in a way I somehow hadn't fully registered at the reunion when my brain had been occupied with Jen and Mike and my imploding relationship. Dark blonde hair, bright eyes, this smile that made you want to smile back automatically. We sat down at a corner booth and ordered sandwiches neither of us paid much attention to because we were too busy talking. The conversation flowed like water, jumping from topic to topic, without those awkward pauses that plague first meetings. We talked about our jobs, our families, carefully avoiding Jen, our favorite terrible movies, places we wanted to travel. 2 hours flew by like minutes. When we finally left the restaurant, we just kept walking. There was a park nearby, and somehow we ended up there, sitting on a bench, still talking. At some point, the sun started setting, and I realized I didn't want the afternoon to end. "This was nice," Liv said, and she seemed almost shy suddenly. "Really nice." "Yeah," I agreed. "We should do this again. I'd like that." We started meeting up regularly after that. Coffee dates that turned into long walks, dinners that stretched late into the evening, movie nights at my brother's place where we'd sit on opposite ends of the couch at first, that distance gradually shrinking week by week. I wasn't looking for a relationship, genuinely wasn't. I was still processing the Jen situation, still sometimes waking up with that hollow feeling in my chest. But Liv made everything feel lighter somehow, natural, right. One night, about 2 months into this weird, undefined thing we had going, we were walking back to her car after dinner. It was one of those perfect summer evenings, warm but not hot, fireflies starting to blink in the shadows. "Can I ask you something?" Liv said, stopping on the sidewalk. "Sure." "What is this?" She gestured between us. "What are we doing?" My heart kicked into high gear. "I don't know. What do you want it to be?" She laughed nervously. "I asked you first." "Fair enough." I took a breath. "I like you. A lot. More than I probably should, given the circumstances." "The circumstances being that I'm your ex-girlfriend's cousin?" That's the one. She bit her lip, looking down. I like you too, but this is crazy, right? I mean, Jen's gonna lose her mind when she finds out. If she finds out, I corrected. When, Liv said firmly. You know how families are. Someone's going to say something eventually. We stood there in silence, the weight of it settling over us. We both knew what we were dancing around. This wasn't just casual anymore. This had the potential to be something real, something serious. Do you care? I asked. What she thinks? Liv considered that. I care about family drama. I care about making things awkward at reunions for the next decade, but she looked up at me, and her eyes were clear and certain. I care more about this, about you, about not walking away from something that feels this good because I'm worried about what other people will think. Something in my chest unlocked. So, we're doing this? I asked. She smiled. I guess we're doing this. That night was our first kiss. Standing on a sidewalk in suburban nowhere, under a streetlight that kept flickering, we crossed the line from friendship into something more, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We kept it quiet at first, told a few close friends who reacted with various degrees of shock and amusement. My brother laughed so hard he nearly choked on his beer. Only you, he said, wiping his eyes. Only you could turn a disaster breakup into dating the ex's cousin. That's some soap opera shit. But he was happy for me. They all were, once they got past the initial surprise, because they could see what I felt, that Liv and I just worked. We fit. All the things that had felt like pulling teeth with Jen, communication, making plans, just existing together, were effortless with Liv. We knew we couldn't hide it forever, though. Families talk, especially families like Liv's, where everyone was in everyone else's business. Liv told her sister first, then her mom. Both reactions were cautiously supportive, with heavy emphasis on the "this might get awkward" angle. But they didn't forbid it or freak out, which felt like a win. We decided we'd let the news spread naturally, not make a big announcement, but not hide it either. Jen found out within 3 days. The texts started coming to both of us almost simultaneously. Long, angry paragraphs about betrayal and family loyalty and how disgusting this was. Liv got called every name in the book. I got accused of having planned this all along, of having used Jen to get close to her family. She actually wrote, "I hope you're happy with my sloppy seconds," Liv said, showing me her phone with a kind of stunned disbelief. Classy, I muttered. My own messages from Jen were similarly vicious. I called her. One last time, just to set the record straight. Nothing happened with Liv until months after we broke up, I said calmly. You don't get to rewrite history here. You're the one who lied. You're the one who brought your ex to the reunion. You're the one who ditched me to go drinking with him. You must have been eyeing her the whole time, Jen shouted, planning this. I was planning to propose to you, I said quietly. Had the ring and everything. Was going to do it that last night at dinner in front of your whole family. Silence. What? I was going to propose. Ask one of your friends if you don't believe me. Sarah helped me pick out the ring. I let that sink in. So no, I wasn't planning to date your cousin. I was planning to marry you. And then you showed me exactly why that would have been the biggest mistake of my life. More silence. Jen, I'm happy now. Genuinely happy. I'm sorry if that hurts you, but we're both adults. We both get to move on. I just happen to move on with someone who treats me with respect. She was crying now. I could hear it. How do you think this makes me look? That's always what you cared about most, wasn't it? How things looked. I hung up before she could respond. In the weeks that followed, there was drama. Of course there was. Some family members took sides. A few older relatives muttered about propriety and how things looked. But most people, once they got past the initial gossip phase, were surprisingly cool about it. Life's too short, Liv's dad told us over dinner one night. If you kids make each other happy, that's what matters. Jen, meanwhile, seemed to be spiraling. According to Liv's sister, who still kept tabs on family gossip, Jen had tried to rekindle things with Mike. That hadn't worked out. She'd posted some pretty dramatic stuff on social media about betrayal and moving on. She'd apparently told her grandmother that I'd broken her heart, conveniently leaving out the parts about lying and Mike. I felt bad for her in a distant kind of way, but not bad enough to do anything about it. She'd made her choices. Now she got to live with them. Liv and I, meanwhile, were building something real. 6 months after my breakup with Jen, 4 months into officially dating, we took a weekend trip to the mountains. No cell service, just us, and hiking trails and a cabin that was equal parts rustic and cozy. One night, sitting on the porch and watching stars that you just can't see in the city, Liv turned to me. "Do you know the craziest part about all this?" she said. "What's that?" If Jen hadn't screwed up so spectacularly, we never would have gotten to know each other. I mean, we'd met at family things before, but we never talked. Not really. I thought about that. About how one person's betrayal had led me to someone who actually valued me. About how the worst night of my life had somehow set me on the path to the best relationship I'd ever had. Here I was searching for copper, I said, pulling her close, and I ended up finding gold. She groaned. "That's so corny." "You love it." "I really do," she admitted, kissing me. Life got weirder, though, because apparently Jen couldn't handle seeing us happy. It started small. Random social media accounts following Liv, sending weird messages. We blocked them, moved on. Then Jen showed up at Liv's workplace one day wanting to talk things out. Liv had security escort her out. The final straw came when we both noticed Jen's car parked on our street multiple times over a 2-week period, just sitting there, watching. "This is getting creepy," Liv said, and I couldn't agree.
We documented everything, saved screenshots, wrote down dates and times, told Liv's parents, who were horrified, and apparently had a serious conversation with Jen's parents. Jen's mom actually called me after that. "I'm so sorry," she said, and she sounded genuinely upset. "I don't know what's gotten into her. She won't talk to anyone, won't get help. I think losing you broke something in her." I felt a twinge of guilt at that. Just a twinge. "I'm sorry she's hurting," I said, "but we all make choices. She made hers." After that conversation, after Jen's parents got involved, the harassment stopped. No more random accounts, no more workplace visits, no more cars parked on our street. Radio silence. It's been a few months now since all that drama. Liv and I are still going strong. We've talked about moving in together, though we're taking it slow, learning from past mistakes and all that. Sometimes I think about that ring box I returned, about the proposal I never got to make, about the life I thought I was building with Jen. And then I look at Liv, really look at her, laughing at some dumb joke, completely herself, completely happy, and I feel nothing but gratitude. Gratitude that I found out the truth before legally binding myself to the wrong person. Gratitude for drunk cousins who can't keep secrets. Gratitude for the courage to walk away when everything in me wanted to stay and fix things that couldn't be fixed. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Sometimes the universe protects you from your own bad decisions. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, the worst thing that ever happened to you leads you straight to the best thing. Looking back now, I can see the whole thing clearly. Not just what happened, but why it mattered. I almost married someone who saw my love as a burden. Someone who valued appearances over honesty, who would rather lie to my face than have an uncomfortable conversation. I would have stood in front of her entire family and promised forever to someone who was already looking for the exit. That ring would have been a trap, not a promise. Instead, I'm with someone who communicates, who values me, who doesn't play games or keep score or make me feel like I'm somehow failing by caring too much. The revenge, if you can call it that, wasn't planned. I didn't set out to hurt Jen by dating her cousin, but life has this funny way of serving justice. Jen wanted me to take a hint and leave her for someone better, so I did. And better turned out to be someone she had to see at every family gathering for the rest of her life. The universe has a wicked sense of humor sometimes. I don't wish ill on Jen. I hope she gets her life together, finds happiness, maybe learns to be honest with herself and the people who love her. But that's not my responsibility anymore. My responsibility is to the woman sitting next to me on the couch right now, stealing my popcorn and laughing at our terrible taste in movies. My responsibility is to build something real, something honest, something that doesn't require lies or games or pretending to be less than I am. I was searching for copper and found gold, and unlike Jen, I'm smart enough to know the difference. So there it is.
the story of how I almost made the biggest mistake of my life and ended up exactly where I was supposed to be. If this resonated with you, if you've ever dodged a bullet and found something better on the other side, hit that like button. Drop a comment with your own story. I read them all. And subscribe, because trust me, the universe isn't done throwing curveballs at any of us. Thanks for listening to this wild ride. Until next time, trust your gut, value yourself, and never settle for someone who calls you clingy for actually giving a damn.